So Summer Games Fest 2025 gave us a load of information about all of the upcoming games coming in the near future. However, the big one that stuck out to me is Resident Evil 9, or also known as Resident Evil Requiem. Now we're still at a stage where we don't actually know too much about this game in a concrete setting yet, so I thought now's as good a time as any to just theorise about everything that could be coming in Resident Evil Requiem. So, as we know, it's going to be a new protagonist from the forefront. That's going to be FBI agent Grace Ashcroft. Now, fun fact about Grace Ashcroft, she is obviously the daughter of Alyssa Ashcroft from Resident Evil Outbreak. Now, she was an investigative reporter for the Raccoon Press, who unfortunately met her demise during the investigation of the Wrenwood Hotel case. Now, it seems fairly clear that this is where we pick up in Requiem as her daughter Grace, and we're going to be essentially investigating her death all those years later. And as the trailer suggests, in order to do that, we're going to have to head back to the old favourite, Raccoon City, which obviously at this stage has been like nuked to hell, so it's just an absolute rubble of itself. As we've seen the police department in tatters, just massive crater obviously where that sort of small yield nuke went off. It's fantastic, it's full circle. I believe it's like 30 years since Raccoon City would have met its demise in the Resident Evil universe, so it's like a little 30th anniversary going back to it, which is really cool. Now, as you'd expect in any Resident Evil game, there is of course going to be some bioweapons making appearances within this game. However, one theory that I've actually got is that we could see the return of one from Resident Evil Outbreak, that being the Nikes, as the encounter that you actually have with it within Outbreak is optional. It's not something that you actually can, well, you can kill it in Outbreak, but it's not essential. It's completely up to you. There's no obligation to do it. So if you look about it in sort of a canonic storyline sense, it could very well have just been left alone within this timeline and essentially just survive in the ruins of Raccoon City up until we meet it here in Resident Evil Requiem. I think that would be another really cool parallel to the previous game of Outbreak, especially seeing as obviously our main protagonist is related to Alyssa Ashcroft. Carrying on with the theme of returning stuff from previous Resident Evil games, we've of course got to cover the potential for returning characters from those old titles. I think the really obvious one here is the fact that, come on, we're going back to Raccoon City. Who's the favourite guy in Raccoon City? Big Leon S. Kennedy. Are we going to see him again? It honestly wouldn't surprise me given how the more recent Resident Evil games have been. Obviously with the likes of 7 and 8, you have the return of Chris Redfield coming in. Since Raccoon City is so sort of intertwined with Leon himself, I wouldn't be surprised if we actually do see him return in this game. The only other rogue shout I've potentially got is maybe we see Ada Wong. Obviously again you have that Raccoon City link, but there was actually leaked evidence that she was meant to return in Resident Evil Village and was cut for whatever reason. So if you look at it from like a business development perspective, they probably have like an up-to-date Ada model just chilling in the background that they haven't used yet, so they could quite easily just incorporate that into Requiem quite well. And again, she's a fan favourite character, having her back into the series in a new capacity, everyone's going to love it. One of the coolest theories I've seen so far is actually relating to the potential big bad of this game, that being that it could actually be Mr. Brandon Bailey. Now, if you don't remember him, Brandon Bailey is one of the founding members of the Umbrella Corporation, and more interestingly, is actually the only ones whose appearance has been yet to be revealed. Not to mention, he is also sort of the greater scope villain for both Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil Village, having obviously founded the Connections crime syndicate to continue Umbrella's legacy of creating these horrific bioweapons. Now, there was a note in Resident Evil 5 that Brandon Bailey is actually long dead, however, the BSAA could never actually confirm his demise, so could we see him come back here? I think there's as good a shout as anyone of him being this big bad in the chair that we see in the trailer, to be honest with you. Shifting back to our lead protagonist for a minute, I think one thing that we need to sort of remember, or I guess in a way theorise in itself, is the fact that the odds are that Grace is probably immune to whatever form of T-virus or whatever type of weird Umbrella shit have cooked up in this game. That being because Alyssa Ashcroft way back in Outbreak was actually infected herself, and post that game she did actually receive a cure. So if you want to think of it in a weird sort of biological sense, the odds are that the daughter of the woman who was made immune to the T-virus probably also carries that trait. Now, will that play a role into the actual storyline in some capacity? Maybe not, but we do obviously see her tied down to a chair, and if there's potential for them extracting her DNA in some form to make like an antivirus, I just think that's something that you've got to throw out there and just remember. If that was the case, that would then make sense as to why in this trailer, the guy who could be Brandon Bailey but might not be, whoever the big bad is as such, is actually claiming that Grace is the chosen one, the special one. Maybe because she is essentially immune to whatever umbrella atrocities they decide to create. It's kind of straying dangerously close to Alice in the actual weird Resident Evil movies, but there's no reason why it couldn't potentially work here. And that also could then potentially link into why we're hearing about all of these victims that have been murdered. The whole point that we're actually investigating within Requiem to begin with. There's been these 4 different victims of murder which are likely targeted for potentially having the same sort of immunity or potential DNA as Grace. Again, this is a massive stretch, but the main thing I'm sort of saying with the actual victims of the murders is that they are probably connected for some reason. Anyway, more importantly, what do you guys think? Are you guys excited for Resident Evil Requiem, and have you got any theories yourselves? Please do let me know down in the comments below. I absolutely love theorising about Resident Evil games. I don't know why the universe isn't exactly that massive. It's just really cool for how long the series has been going on, and seeing all these characters potentially returning is just, I just love it. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and make sure you do subscribe if you are new here. Thanks ever so much, and I'll see you in the next one sometime soon.